Talktainment Radio Worldwide Sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Okay, good morning and welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio, and you are now in touch with the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. In a few moments, I'm going to give you the numbers that you can call in and get in contact with the show, and even a Gmail address that you can Gmail me, and we will try to get your questions on the air. The topic today will be the third and maybe the final installment, at least this go-around, in the first area of people activity, which is going to be economics. We have still a few more questions over there. And on the line live from Washington, D.C., we have Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Mr. Fuller, how are you this morning? Okay, let's see. Need to get Mr. Fuller on here. Mr. Fuller? Wait a minute, we're going to try to get him on here. Okay, let's see here. If we can round that up here. That's some things like that happen in live radio. Okay, Mr. Fuller, are you there? Not yet. Okay, there he is, Mr. Fuller. Okay. Mr. Fuller is the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. It is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism and white supremacy. He will be explaining that book, where you can get it, and all the necessary information that you need to understand what's going on. Mr. Fuller, first of all, how are you this morning?
I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Before I give you the mic, I just want you to know that I have been receiving a lot of Gmails from people all around the world. And as a matter of fact, I can hardly wait to read an email for you that a person sent from Indonesia. But I bring that up because I want you to know, and the world wants you to know, that people really appreciate your program and appreciate the things that you are doing and have done and have written about to be able to answer their questions and concerns. So you have a worldwide audience, and I'm really impressed with that. Okay, let's see. I think I've got all the information out the way. This week, from the point we left off to this time here, a 2-hour show, heard live from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I was told to make sure that I got that in there. What have you discovered, or did somebody email you with a concern, or what would you like to start today's program off with?
Well, most of the talk right now is about the election, but I'd like to say that regardless of which way the election goes here in the Northwestern Hemisphere, the condition of black people is apt to stay the same, at least for the time being. I don't know what time frame to put on it, because sometimes things come up that you don't expect, and you should always expect the unexpected. But there are some things that you can pretty well predict, and I think that one of the things is there's going to be a dire job dearth situation with black people in the Northwestern Hemisphere. That's going to continue. The search for jobs, the dislocation that's associated with jobs, and the lack of income from the jobs that people have. It's going to be inadequate to take care of their needs for the most part. That's going to continue because that's the situation as it is now, as far as the information that I get from many people. And also the dislocation factor. There are six major white supremacist strategies for dislocation confusion, or rather for racial confusion among non-white people. One of them is dislocation. This is covered in the textbook for victims of white supremacy in the new revised expanded edition.
Yes, sir.
And you can find that from starting on page 24, rather page 25.
Page 25?
Through page 36.
Uh-huh.
Right. And what are these six major racist strategies? They are racial classification confusion,
yes,
racial population dislocation confusion, racial population tailoring confusion, racial showcasing confusion, racial sexual confusion, and racial white sacrifice confusion. Now, I'm pointing out this morning racial population dislocation confusion. That means what in practical terms? That means that if you are a person of color, and we are in the system of white supremacy, you will be forced to dislocate from wherever you are, if wherever you are happens to be stable. And that's anywhere in the world. They're doing this. They're going all out to do this now. And it may not show up in some places, but in most places where black people seem to be, or people of color seem to be doing, you might say, reasonably well, doing better than they have done, say, in years in the past, and they seem to be getting stable and on their feet. What the racists do, they come around and take a look, and they see that you're getting some type of stability. So they're going to destabilize that situation. They're going to have to do this. This is one thing they have to do. People have asked me about this for years. They say, how can you get the white supremacists to keep you from having to move from a stable situation that you have, where you're well established or getting established, and it looks like you're going to get on your feet, but maybe for the first time, or maybe for the second time you're getting on your feet after having been dislocated from somewhere else. And my response down through the years has been, there's no way you can compensate for that other than to be ready to move, because they have to do this. They have to keep, you might say, like in old Western-type movies, keep them squatters on the move. They consider people of color to be squatters here on the planet.
Yes.
That we have no permanent place, that our place is wherever they say that it's going to be. If you're a person of color, they'll just move in and say, hey, I'm here now, so you have to move from where you are. In the Northwestern Hemisphere, people will experience this in housing. A lot of people have experienced that already in the last few years. They have had to move from houses that they moved into, and after they stayed there a little while, they had to move out. And there's all kinds of ways to get you to move out. Sometimes it's just there was some misunderstanding about the so-called mortgage payments, the prime rates and all of that type of thing. And in other ways they'll open a drug den or allow a drug den to flourish right down the street from you or somewhere in the neighborhood. And then with the drugs come the guns and the gunfire and the offspring, the children and whatnot, trying to go to school and all like that, and they're having to dodge bullets and all that. So you say, I got to get out of here. I got to move. Well, this is all well planned. The white supremacists know this. And so when you move, then as soon as you move and as soon as the people of color move out, then the white supremacists move in white people.
Yes.
And then everything becomes peaceful. And then the people of color come around trying to get back in, but they can't get back in on account of the pricing is too high. And
yes.
the jobs that they have will not meet that price because they catch you on both ends. They'll see to it you won't have the income, and then they'll see to it that you can't move in. And if you have the income to move in, they'll see to it that you get destabilized again. So it's a cycle.
Yes.
They keep that going. It's called racial dislocation confusion.
How's that different from gentrification?
Same thing.
Okay,
they
same
got
thing.
different names for it.
Yes, sir. Okay.
But what it boils down to is you got to move again.
You got to move again.
You
okay.
got to move again. You cannot stay where you are. We're going to keep you destabilized. There's no such thing as a black person going to have what you call the second generation house. Right after so-called World War II, many black people could sit on their porches and say, well, it's a substantial number, and say, well, my grandfather had this house. This is a third-generation house, or at least a second-generation house. It might not have been much, but it was stabilized in a solid neighborhood, you might say. You knew everybody in the neighborhood and all like that.
Yes, that's true.
The white supremacists looked at that and said, no more of that. That's not going to happen ever again. Keep them people moving, because when you keep them moving, you keep them in all kind of disarray. You cause so-called marriages to break up and all like that, and people scattered all over the place. Say, they got these big two-story houses with room in the basement for someone. We're going to do away with all that. It's not going to be any more of that. And we're going to make the little rooms smaller so that they have to crowd in there when we build them. And we're going to put high prices on those little small rooms. In other words, it's all about racial dislocation confusion.
Okay.
Keep them confused. Keep them moving. Keep them moving. And in other places throughout the world, they'll just cause famine, things like that. All of a sudden, or they will locate you where what? You have floods. They know that the flood is coming 10 years down the road. They have already predicted that. Say, we can't pinpoint the exact day, but we know that we are moving these people into an area that's going to flood, and we're going to put them there. They're going to buy a lot of nice houses there. They're going to be paying for them. They're going to think that they're all set and all ready to go, but within the next 15 years, you're going to have one of the biggest floods that you ever want to see right there in that area where we have built those houses for these people of color, or we have allowed them to migrate to. And so they're going to have to move again and be at our mercy again and have to beg again all over for some place to go.
Yes.
I just wanted to drop that out there. So
okay.
What's the remedy for this? Stay ready to move.
Stay ready to move.
Don't think that you're in a permanent situation. Don't accumulate a lot of stuff that you're going to have to move, particularly in the Northwestern Hemisphere. People have a tendency to say, well, I got this big house, and so I got to furnish it because I want to impress my friends, like, particularly black people usually want to do, and all like that. And I'm saying, if you have space in any house that you have, don't fill up that space. That space will fill up on its own. You'll have more stuff than you can move. So don't look forward. I mean, you have some empty rooms and all like that. Let those rooms stay empty. Let them stay empty. You will need it later on. And then try not to buy anything that you don't absolutely have to have.
Yes.
Because you're going to have to move it.
Okay. Yeah, we want to hit on some of those points, in particular when you mentioned the word beg, and then when I do the commercial there's a program that we have here at Talktainment called New Money. As a matter of fact, let me go to that now. Talktainment Radio is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility that have hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, religion, and, of course, politics. Now, here's one that I would like to share with you, and I think it may be apropos for this segment of the compensatory concept and people activity area number 1, which would be economics. This program here at Talktainment is called New Money. Now, New Money is a show that combines imagination, technology, and marketing. It is designed to showcase and teach people that using modern technology, modern marketing methods, and other creative, non-traditional ways to make money. The goal of the show is to show everyday people how to use technology to make money in ways rather than being forced to kick or to start brick and mortar businesses that require large capital and revenues. Now, the show was hosted by Janae, Lady J. Miller, and Edward Casanova Red Andrews, two experienced marketers and networkers. Now, you can tune in and be entertained and educated at the same time. And this show is exclusive on TalkTainmentRadio.com. That is called New Money. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We are talking in the first area of people activity, which is called economics. I don't know why I keep wanting to call it human activity, but anyway, people activity, we're going to be economics. So get your questions ready, and I will give you the numbers to call them. But before we do that, Mr. Fuller, I had a message, or rather a letter, from a lady named Nancy, and she's Congolese, and she said that she is living in Europe, and she mentioned the country, which happened to be Belgium. She said that she got the book after ordering it on producejustice.com and asked for relatives to ship it to her, and she said it was expensive, at least $50. She said the package had some damage, as you can see on the picture that she forwarded me. Maybe the usual suspects try to get in it. I don't know. I wanted to share this information so it can help someone get the book outside of the U.S. because it's a much-needed book as well. Also, my suggestion, did Mr. Fuller think about doing a Kindle version of his book? That's the first question. And so would you answer that, and then we'll go on to the next one?
Well, I'm not familiar with the Kindle process. I've heard about it and all like that. But I am having some people who know about this type of thing, about shipping worldwide and all like that, look into it and find out exactly what I can do to get the book distributed.
Okay.
In a greater manner from what it is now.
Okay.
And some people are looking into it. It seems like it's a laborious process from what they tell me. Right now, they're just trying to get the Canadian shipments going, and that's right in close proximity. Okay. And I've discussed it with them and whatnot, but they say it's not as easy as it looks on the surface to, for a small operation like what we are. Okay. What I am, I'm almost like a one-person operation. Yes, sir. I have to do most things myself. Yes, sir. And contact people on a one-on-one basis to have them do things. And so I don't have a publisher, for one thing. See, so that's another thing. See what I mean? And yes, sir. I have dodged having a publisher because the publisher that going back to the 1980s, the persons who volunteered to publish, they wanted to make some changes in what the content of my book was, and I would not allow that. Yes, sir. Okay. I wanted the content to stay exactly the way that I wanted it to be. Absolutely, and the way that it is. Yes, sir. So therefore, I had to become what you might call self-published. Yes, sir. So therefore, that made for a distribution problem. Okay, I see. But anyway, she said, and as you always reiterate, that to get the book, you need to go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com, and what will come on the screen will be all the information that one needs to get the book. So we're happy about that. She said this also, Mr. Fuller. It's actually a three-part question, and I'm going to give her the space for this. She says, I just started the book because my English
English is not my first language, and I'm reading slowly but surely. My question is in regard to the male-female interaction. I get that in the racist white supremacist system, there's not such thing as marriage, that the male is targeted constantly, and therefore it is hard for the male to take care of his family. Is that correct, she says?
Absolutely. If you are a person of color on this planet, in almost anywhere on the planet, you must be or should be aware of the fact that you're under the system of white supremacy, and the white supremacists determine your fate in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And in the 8th area of activity, sex, you're talking about marriage. And so there is no such thing as an actual marriage among non-white people.
In the system of
in the system of white supremacy.
Yeah, okay, all right.
There's no such thing. Why? Because you have to have a support system, not a system. A system that's dedicated to supporting you, not a system that's dedicated to undermining you.
Right, exploiting. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and the system of white supremacy is designed to do what? Dominate and mistreat people of color.
Yes, sir.
So if you're in this system, and everybody who is classified as black, brown, red, yellow, or a person of color, anybody who is classified as anything other than white, you come under the system of white supremacy, and you are, under that system, supposed to be mistreated in all of the areas of activity, and that you're not supposed to have a functional marriage.
Okay.
And so they see to it that you don't have.
Exactly.
This is why you have so much hostility.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, the white supremacists will support anything that will cause more and more hostility and more breakdown of communications between male and female among people of color.
Okay. Now, with that being said, she said, if so, I've been and I am still in this situation where financially I can't count on my so-called husband to help me financially and take care of the household. All of us, we live at my mom's place, and our couple suffered from it because he had personally made some decisions that hurt the financial stability of our home. He does have a lot of excuses. He cheated on me. I forgave him, but he keeps having female friends texting when I raise my voice. He says it's just a friend. I've had been supporting a lot of his pain, thinking that I needed to help him more, knowing that. Is racism white supremacy, or is white supremacy to blame for every behavior and decision a non-white male can make or could make?
Directly or indirectly, yes. The white supremacists form our values. They are the ones that tell black males that, okay, you're supposed to be a man, and that so... but we're going to see to it that you are not one, and that you're going to be a boy. So then, to compensate for that, the white supremacists are the masters of psychology. They are master strategists. They know how people think. So they know that when you tell a male that he can't be a man, that he's got to be a boy, he starts trying to compensate by trying to figure out how he can express his manhood. And so one way that many black males choose to do that, and even though they may not be aware of so much of what the root of it is, they will say, well, if I gather up a number of females and put them under my tutelage or whatnot, my guidance and whatnot, well, at least I can have that, since I can't have any say-so about anything else. I don't have any say-so about where I can build a house. I don't have any say-so about where I can raise a family. I don't have any say-so about what my educational system will be.
Yes, sir.
I don't have any say-so about what my income will be. So therefore, at least I might have that. So they do that.
Yes, sir.
So that's to be expected.
That is to be expected.
And as long as you have the system of white supremacy, that's to be expected.
Okay.
And so every black female has to understand this right from the beginning. This is why you can't have these so-called marriages.
Gotcha.
They don't work. They really don't exist.
Okay.
They just exist on paper or in your minds or something like that.
Okay.
But the white supremacists can come around and say, hey, you know, you got to go here, you got to go there, you got to do this, you got to do that. Why? Because I said so. And this means you have no control over your circumstances of what you call your marriage.
Okay.
Which means you don't have one.
All right. Now, finally, she says this. Today, after many years, I am tired. I am non-productive due to the negative state that I'm in. I want to get myself out of this situation, but I am afraid of the consequence from my family. We have a son. He is there for his son. He is present most of the time. He got better, but for me, it's too late. I don't trust him. Leaving him does not mean that I don't want him to see his baby. I do want that and appreciate their relationship. By leaving him, Mr. Fuller, am I supporting the white supremacy system?
You're supporting the white supremacy system regardless of what system you're in. This is why we have to get rid of the system. In other words, it's a make-do situation. But black people are going to have to bite that bullet. We're going to have to face that. We are all prisoners of war. And until the system of white supremacy, I mean the entire system, is replaced with a world system of justice, we are going to continue to have these problems. It's no way to have the system of white supremacy and not have a continuation of these problems on and on and on and on into infinity.
Mm-hmm.
As prisoners of war, we have to understand that as prisoners of war, we have to suffer through the things that are identified with prisoners of war. Prisoners of war have no say-so about anything. What we have been trying to do, and I had to realize this over a period of years. That's why I came to write the book. I was figuring that there was somewhere I could go, some arrangement I could make, where the white supremacists could not dictate to me what to do and how to do it, and what to value and what not to value, and what's important and what's not important. But there's no way to do that. There's nowhere to go. There's no place that you can find a sanctuary. There's no little nook that you can find. We are in a war, and we are already prisoners of that war. If you're a person of color, you are a prisoner of the war that's already being waged. The war is continuous. It's never ended, and it won't end until people stop fighting. That's when the war is ended. Stop resisting it and whatnot. But the option for that is to capitulate to it forever. So we are stuck in this situation, and you can't get these marriages the way they ought to be.
Ought to be, all right.
That's the main thing you have to have in mind.
Okay.
You can get it so that you can kind of work with it a little bit and put up with the pluses and the minuses, and there's going to be plenty of minuses. But you cannot get it the way that it ought to be. I don't care who you are.
All righty.
If you're a person of color.
All right. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can check us out on WCRS-FM 98.3. Wednesday and Sunday evenings, blogs and podcasts are available. You can download the TalkTainmentRadio.com to your app, or to your cell, or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We are going to attempt to open up the phone lines and more of your Gmails All that and more coming up next on TalkTameItRadio.com. Able to call in today. It looks like we are having a issue with that, which we are working to resolve. So you will have to Gmail me. That's 7MrBobby@gmail.com, and perhaps we can get that resolved where you can call in. So right now we will do the you can get me by going to the Gmail. So stack it up. And by the way, thank you for listening. I'm looking at the board over here, and man, you're doing good. You are really tuning in, and I just want to thank you for that. Let's go to the Gmails, Mr. Fuller. Let's see here. This comes from Unconquered Minds. It says, greetings. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I would like to know, can a non-white person have a white supremacist mindset, ways, and action towards his or her own people? If so, how should we deal with this person?
We deal with ourselves because we're all like that. We can't escape the influence that the white supremacists have had on the way that we think, the things that we value, the things we look forward to. The whole concept of what our existence on the planet is all about. It's greatly influenced by our masters. That's what white supremacy means. But then they don't allow us to think in any way that's going to be consistently constructive. This is why they always want control of the way that we are so-called educated. Mm-hmm. And the way that we are educated has to be approved of by them. They look at whatever we're studying and whatnot, and they give us the materials to study.
That's correct.
And they tell us what our grades will be in these materials.
That is correct.
And then they make an assessment, and they say, now, have you understood what your role is on this planet while you're here as a person of color? Even though they don't put it in those words, that's what it means. Mm-hmm. What you value, what you want to get money for, and what you're going to buy when you get that money. They set all of these values, and so we are raised by them. We are their illegitimate children. They took us over.
Okay.
By taking our parents, so-called.
Yes.
Our parents became non-parents because they became the illegitimate parents.
Yes.
Because we are now the illegitimate children.
All right.
All people of color are the illegitimate children of the white supremacists now.
Okay, well, then could you say this? Then the answer always starts with, according to the compensatory code, and stay within the compensatory logic.
Yes. Yes. If you have white supremacy, that's what that means. That's not some type of abstract term that's not connected with anything. That's connected with everything. It means they dictate how you are supposed to think. And so, yes, in answer to the question, black people, all of us, have some built-in animosities. First of all, toward ourselves as individuals. And then we spread that poison to other non-white people.
Okay.
It's the white standard that we go by on this planet. Everywhere, all over the planet, people of color are taught to worship the white standard for everything. And so, therefore, we don't have a standard of our own. So, therefore, we say we have disdain for anything that hasn't been approved of.
Yes, sir.
By the white supremacists.
Okay. By the way, the lady from Belgium just sent me a response, and she said this: Mr. Fuller, thank you for your response and the constructive work that you do. I thought that was very, very good. Mr. Fuller, on a couple of shows ago, you mentioned, and we're still speaking of economics and certain responses. You spoke of the Fifth and I believe the 14th Amendment. On that, what did you mean when you brought those two amendments up?
Well, in the Northwestern Hemisphere, that they are part of the Constitution, and Thurgood Judge Thurgood Marshall always talked about the Fifth and the 14th Amendments. Fifth Amendment to the Constitution, and these amendments originally were made for white people.
Yes.
Black people were not supposed to be included in
that's correct.
in the entire Constitution. But grudgingly, they relented a little bit and said, well, maybe we say that they are included as people in the Constitution rather than partial people, some type of entity other than people. And now that we're going to include them in there, maybe they won't notice it too much, and maybe, we'll just have them do things like ceremonial. They notice that black people are very ceremonial people, so we'll let them go through ceremonies without giving them any substance. So things like saluting the flag and all like that, we'll let them do that. But we'll kind of keep them away from interpreting things where the rubber will meet the road, you might say. And in the 5th and 14th Amendment to the Constitution, we just hope that they won't notice it. They won't make use of it. But Judge Thurgood Marshall, a person of color, some years ago said, I'm going to make use of it. They made a mistake if they think that we're not going to use the Constitution rather than just salute the flag like it's the Constitution and then let everything else go, not pay attention to the Constitution. Mm-hmm. No, the flag is just symbolic of whatever you want to make it. But the Constitution is very specific. So therefore, we'll say the Constitution, the Fifth Amendment, is about due process.
Due process, okay.
And about compensation. That word is mentioned in there. If I don't have it right in front of me.
So you're entitled to due process.
Right. And due process is about going about doing everything the correct way.
Yes, sir.
Without skipping over anything. And the 14th Amendment is about equal protection of the laws. In other words, what you do for or against one person in the same circumstances, you're supposed to do for and against another person. Everybody's supposed to be equal. It's not supposed to be any differences here.
According to the Constitution's 14th Amendment.
Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a so-called class system, even though you hear people say socially there is a class system. So you got a contradiction right there. What do you mean by class? You even hear people use terms like upper class,
yes,
middle class, lower class. But mostly you hear in the Northwestern Hemisphere, people talk about the middle class. Well, then, when do you really reach the so-called upper class? Is there, are we talking about classes of people? And where is the lower class? I mean, how do you measure that? Do you measure it by income? Do you measure it by what your resident zip code is?
Mm-hmm. Constantly asking questions.
Yes, you constantly ask questions about this. Why? Because this has to do with that 14th Amendment. So what you do is just keep asking questions about the 14th Amendment and the 5th Amendment.
Okay.
And you always do things along those lines, particularly in job situations.
Okay.
So this is where I tell people you use it.
Okay.
And you do it by raising questions. Is the Fifth Amendment being violated? That's the question you always want to ask. Meaning, did you go about doing everything the way that the law says you're supposed to go about doing it? Whatever you did you go about doing it? Did you skip over anything? Did you ignore anything? Or did you include something that shouldn't have been included? See, that's about due process.
Yes, sir.
And 14th Amendment is about, hey, on this job, do you treat me the way that you treat everybody else? Do you? That's a question. And if not, why not? And have them explain it in writing.
In writing, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I always ask for your explanation in writing. And don't accuse anybody of doing anything.
Why do you ask for it in writing? I mean, I know why, but explain anyway. Why should we get this in writing?
Because if it's not in writing, it didn't happen.
Wow.
Functionally.
Okay.
I mean, and people will say, I don't remember. I mean,
yes,
that memory thing comes up.
Yes.
6 months later, a year down the road, nobody can remember.
Yeah, I don't remember saying that.
What happened.
Yeah.
See, so have everybody, whatever issue comes up, everybody raises their questions, and you should always stay in the question lane. See, don't stay away from statements. Statements can be dangerous to you. Just ask questions. When you write something, put it in the form of a question. And therefore, someone is supposed to have the answers to the questions. And if they don't have them immediately, they're supposed to find them.
Okay.
Because every question has an answer. There's no such thing as a question that doesn't have an answer.
All righty. TalkTameItRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can download the TalkTameItRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio, the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and our topic today, the third segment of economics, the first area of people activity. And Mr. Fuller, your book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, could you speak 1 minute on that before I do the other Gmails here?
Yes, you can get it by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And I wrote the book, and I call it a subtitle, one of the titles, rather, I won't say subtitles, a complementary title, is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism. And racism, of course, is white supremacy. And I interpret a lot of words according to what is needed, I say, to resist and or eventually, hopefully, and my intention is to eliminate the system of white supremacy and replace it with the system of justice. That's the purpose of the book. And it's addressed to individual persons who are victims of racism to bring that about.
Okay.
It's for the individual. I try to tailor everything to the individual person because the individual person is with him or herself more than they are with, depending on what you mean by the word with, anyone else. You're always with yourself.
Okay.
So you find yourself in circumstances, and everything is about do's and don'ts. That applies to everybody on the planet. What do you do in this particular circumstance that you're in at this moment, wherever you happen to be? And what is it you don't do? Because everything is about do's and don'ts.
Yes, sir.
And everything is about saying something that you should say and not saying something that you shouldn't say. Or it's about doing something that you should do or not doing something that you shouldn't do.
Alrighty. Let's see here. For those who would like to call in right now, we are having an issue that we are dealing with technically, so you cannot call in, but you may call in, or rather may Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and we will attempt to answer your questions. This brother that I mistakenly thought was a female, at least by pronunciation, and I'm going to mess his name up, but I'm going to try. Sip Hilo. Yeah, got it. Anyway, just want to know that your question is on the way up, and I will have Mr. Fuller address it. But Mr. Fuller, on the subject of economics, you mentioned the term begging, which did seem to upset quite a few people, at least in my conversations during the week. That topic came up, begging. And then on page 73 of the the revised expanded edition of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, you wrote some things about money. Could you address that begging? Because some people are really having a problem with that. Some of the comments I've heard, I don't want to beg anybody for anything. I mean, why does he have to say that we should be begging them for something?
Well, you can use the term begging, or you can use another term that I invented. You might say it's a sophisticated term for the same thing, what is begging? Well, first of all, what is begging?
Okay.
Begging is asking twice for the same item or the same circumstance or whatever it is.
Now, is that your definition of it, or is that what it is?
Yes, that's what I call the logical definition.
Okay.
According to compensatory logic. What exactly is begging? Begging is asking twice for the same thing. In other words, you ask once, and so therefore you're not begging. That's making a request when you ask once.
Okay.
And then you are granted whatever you ask for.
Or not.
If you are turned down for that request.
Uh-huh.
Say if I ask for a job, and they say, well, I'm not going to give you the job. So I come around the next day or later on, and I ask for the same job again. Now I'm begging.
Okay.
Yes, because I've already been turned down for that job. So if you ask twice for anything, you're begging, whether you realize it or not, or whether you want to call it that or not. Anytime you have to ask twice, there's a scene, I think a couple of scenes that's kind of alluded to in a movie that I sometimes use as examples of this criminal world that we're in, The Godfather. And there's a scene where a lawyer for the Corleone family is talking to a movie producer of some type.
Yeah, I remember that
director,
scene.
yes. And he says that, well, I want The Godfather has a person that he wants to be in your movie, and his name is Johnny Fontaine, and he wants the part in that movie that you're going to make. And so the movie director or producer or owner said, no, he's not going to get it. And you can ask me for something else, but he's not going to get that. He says, well, The Godfather is The Godfather, and The Godfather doesn't ask for the same thing twice. He either gets it the first time or he doesn't ask again, meaning after that he makes a demand. A demand is not the same as asking or begging. Okay? Now, black people are not in position to make demands of the white supremacists.
Correct.
So, therefore, we are always in a begging position because we are prisoners of war.
Yes.
We can't get away from that. So, but I have come up with a compensatory term called compensatory investment request. Rather than call it begging, you say
yes,
you're
sir.
making a compensatory investment request.
Okay.
Now, what does that mean? That means, what does that compensatory mean? It means you need something that you don't have. So compensatory means you're trying to get the thing that you need or think that you should have. That's compensatory.
Okay.
Investment. An investment meaning what? You're investing in me. I need someone to invest in me. This is what you're doing when you ask for a job. You're asking for someone to invest in you. Or you're asking for anything. You're asking for an investment. In other words, the person is going to invest. They're going to give you something or let you have something. So that's an investment if they expect some return on it.
Well,
and of course, you call it a request.
Yeah.
So black people can use that term. I will use the term.
Yes.
If the person that doesn't want to use that term begging, that's what compensatory logic is all about.
Well,
we'll find a term that you can use, and that will be accurate, and that will be productive. So you say, I'm making a compensatory investment request. And that includes everything from negotiating a contract for a part in a movie, if you're a black actor, or negotiating a contract for a job, I mean just an ordinary job, or you're asking for, you're at the big level, I mean you're asking for some money to open a factory or something like that. Or it could be you are just a black person sitting on the curb and you don't have a dime in your pocket. And so you go to a hotel lobby and you ask people in that lobby to give you some money, like a lot of people do. It's very annoying, but people do that. And if you're accused of begging, if you're black you can always, and if you're arrested for being in the lobby harassing people, because they'll probably say you're panhandling or you're soliciting or something like that. If you're arrested for doing that, if I was a person doing that, and I was arrested for doing that, I would tell the judge, Your Honor, out of all due regard, I was not panhandling. There's no evidence of me having a pan or a handle, and I was not begging. I was making a compensatory investment request, sir.
Well,
and I would tell my lawyer to use those words.
Okay. Brother Johnson down at the club said that was sugar honey iced tea. Go figure it out. And he used that acronym. On page 73 of the expanded edition, you wrote a little bit about money. Let me read this. It says, to the best of your ability, practice trading, exchanging information, labor, materials, etc., without using and or without directly depending on the use of money whose distribution and or value is directly or indirectly dominated by racist man and racist woman. In other words, white supremacists collectively. Make a habit of saving some part of all monies that regularly comes into your possession. To save regularly helps to prevent waste and helps a person to be better prepared for emergencies and for opportunities. Now, according to compensatory logic, there are only three major ways of gaining so-called capital: inventing and or providing something that is wanted or needed. Number two, robbing and or stealing. Or number three, asking, requesting, and or begging someone who has capital. Now, I know you pointed, there are three different ways to do that, but then there's this word again, begging, which, you just explained. But if this is the goal, then why do you have to do all that?
You have to do it because you don't have anything. Black people don't have anything except what the white supremacists allow us to have. That's money, house, land, whatever. We don't have anything. We're prisoners of war. Prisoners of war don't have anything. So a prisoner of war has to ask the camp commandant, you might say, whoever's running the prison, the warden, for whatever you get. If you want, like Andy Dufresne in the movie The Shawshank Redemption, if you want a library so you can learn something, because everybody should want to learn something that help them to do better than they are doing, well, he asked for a library. And the warden says, well, I don't know about you getting a library, but you can keep asking and keep asking. It takes money, to have the library in the prison.
Yes, it does.
You can keep asking. So that's what Andy Dufresne did. He asked more than once. In fact, according to the script in the movie, anybody who has seen the movie, he just kept writing letters endlessly until the people finally got tired of him writing letters and say, who is this person that keeps writing these letters, making these requests? Well, send him something for what he wants, and maybe he'll stop writing. And then Andy, after he got the letter saying that he was going to start getting some money to have the library, he said, well, instead of writing one letter at a time, I'm going to write two, and maybe I'll get some more. So that might be a signal for the non-white people of the world, and that's what we do anyway when we demonstrate. When we go out in the street, we'll say we demand justice. We're not really demanding anything. We might turn over a few cars, burn down a few buildings, but that's not getting us anything. The code says you definitely don't do that. Why? Because it doesn't work. Start destroying things and whatnot, because usually you get the worst of it when you destroy buildings, burn down buildings in the area where you are. That doesn't get you much of anything.
Yes.
That's just a temper tantrum that you eventually have to pay the price for yourself.
Right.
See, so that's been proven to be a faulty strategy. strategy.
Right. At the end of it, you said, at the end of page 73, you said the only constructive choice that most non-white people have is the third one. And then you said, you asked a provocative question. You said, is this statement true or false?
Yes, because I put it out there. A lot of people say, well, I don't think you're taking that beg. I ain't begging nobody for nothing. But then I'll have to ask them, how do you get anything?
All righty.
How have you ever gotten anything?
Okay.
We came into the world begging, for one thing.
To
start off with.
Okay. You hear the music? We got to close it, but we'll bring it back out. TalkTimeRadio.com, the world's greatest radio, and radio the way it should be heard.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.
Righty. Thank you for listening to the second hour of The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. You are now in touch with The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. We are having a phone issue, so that's why you will not, at least I don't think we will get any calls through, but we do have our Gmails stacking up, and so we will try to get to those Gmails. And I'm looking at the counter, and I want to thank you for listening. And you must be telling people, because I'm looking at the count, and it is really going up, and we do have a worldwide audience. Our topic today from Mr. Fuller, the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, which is really a textbook, workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. He will be speaking to that, and make sure that when you Gmail me, you ask your questions, usually according to the compensatory code, because that is the way that Mr. Fuller is going to answer you, according to compensatory code or compensatory logic. Let's go, and I'm going to try to pronounce his name carefully. Sephep Hilo says this, Mr. Fuller, on the Gmail. He says, currently there are protests and demonstrations all over the world. It seems a few years back here in so-called South Africa, the media lied and incited, quote, local, end of quote, black people to attack black people from neighboring African countries. I personally did not see any violence apart from repeated images on TV. Currently, there is a huge protest from territory students. Black students are in prisons for asking, now this is asking or begging, the white supremacists for free decolonized education. There are people who understand what the current black president, Jacob Zuma, is also a victim of white supremacy, but I suspect that the white supremacists have made him a, quote, fall guy, end of quote. The media has almost the entire country believing that all of our problems arise from the current black president. I feel like the white supremacists will or can be able to use the media to get us, the black people on this part of the earth, to kill one another because we do not scrutinize what we hear and see on TV. Question: how do we stop our people from falling for the lies of the media? How do we stop black people from killing one another? And third, the black people seem to be in a constant state of hysteria. How do we curb the mass hysteria?
The first remark in the textbook for victims of white supremacy is what? If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Now, to get into the specifics of what the person is talking about, that's what we have to understand. The white supremacists are to blame for everything that goes on. Don't turn that loose. Anything that happens to black people anywhere on this planet that should not happen, the white supremacists are to blame. And in the interior of the book, I have 4 things that I always mention. Well, I mention them periodically anyway. I get back to them. 4 things, and they're in the book, in the expanded, revised edition. Many people, number 1, many people have been harmed who should not be harmed. That's number 1. Number 2, many people are to blame. Number 3, the people who are most to blame are hiding in plain sight. Number 4, the people who are most to blame are all white supremacists, which means you have to be a white person first, and then you have to be a white supremacist. And you are most to blame, whomever you are. They know who they are. For anything that happens at any time, in any area of activity, to any person of color, anywhere on this planet, that should not happen, the white supremacists are to blame. Now, where's the logic in this? Where's the truth in this? They're in charge of all of the non-white people on the planet.
Yes, sir.
Directly, indirectly, through money manipulation, through manipulation of resources, through all kinds of propaganda, and they are the masters.
They are the masters
of words. They know how to move people around by words better than anybody else.
All right.
They will say that a so-called black president of a country, regardless of what that so-called country is, first of all, he's not the president of that country. He just has that title if he's a person of color, because no non-white person is in charge of anything in the system of white supremacy.
Including President Obama.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
And any other black person on the planet or person of color who calls him or herself a king.
Don't make no difference.
Or a queen. I don't care what your title is.
Okay.
The white supremacists dictate.
They run the show.
They run everything, even if you're not aware of it, and most likely you won't be aware of it because they're not going to tell you everything that you need to know.
That is true. So then the answers to the brother's questions is simply what you stated at the first.
Never blame another non-white person for any kind of mess, confusion, or anything happening that shouldn't be happening. Always blame the white supremacists.
So like you said,
they are directly or indirectly to blame for it because they are the ones who instigated it.
Okay.
They're the greatest instigators in the world. And this is what you have to inform everybody of.
All right.
I don't care how it looks on the surface.
Okay. So my brother that asked that question, you stated at the beginning, if you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you.
Yes, that's how we got Rwanda. That's how we got all of these incidents. That's how we get black gangs and so-called Mexican gangs going at each other.
Exactly.
And all like that.
All right.
I mean, beheading each other and all like that. That's the white supremacist operation.
All righty.
All of it.
Okay.
Not some of it, all of it.
All of it. Okay, very good. Okay, my brother. Let's see here. Let's go to this one here. This is from Brother Jermaine. He says this, Mr. Fuller, can you elaborate on how people who practice white supremacy control everything in economics? You told the story of how your business suffered when the government closed the military base in your town. I had a similar experience when the Bush and Clinton administrations closed the military bases in my area in the early and mid-1990s. The once thriving community is now an afterthought. You now have closed business strips, empty houses, and schools under capacity. How is it that they control everything like that?
Well, they have all kinds of ways because they control the way that people think, speak, and act if they are people of color. And we have to have a new way of thinking, speaking, and acting. That's why I call it the compensatory code, what I have written. That's the way out of this. We have to change the way that we see what we're looking at, because we are told that we're looking at something that's different from what the way it really is. What we're really looking at is white supremacy all around us. Even when you don't see any white people at all, you are looking at a world that they have produced, and a way of thinking that they have produced, and a way of acting that they have produced. And when people are in conflict with each other, they have produced that, even when they are nowhere around. They are the ones who directly and indirectly produce the circumstances that will bring on the conflict. You have to understand that they are masters of the activities of the non-white people, the people that they classify as non-white on this planet. And they even have classification confusion, where the people who are sometimes considered to be white or sometimes said or implied that maybe they are not white, or vice versa. Whatever's convenient for them.
Yes, sir.
That's what they'll do.
Mm-hmm.
And like going into business, if you go into any kind of business, the white supremacists are the biggest business on the planet.
That is true.
They are business people. The system of white supremacy itself, the system of racism itself,
is business.
Is a business.
Mm-hmm.
The business of what? Dominating and mistreating people based on color in all areas of activity, 24/7, everywhere on this planet called Earth, everywhere, without exception, no exceptions to that rule. And they do it directly or indirectly, and most of it is done indirectly, because they don't have to be hands-on.
Yeah, they sure
if they
don't.
can control the minds of people.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. This is basically a comment, but it's worth saying. Brother Lawson, he mentioned that no phone, usual suspects. That it could be, Brother Lawson. I'm not sure, but I have my suspicion. So it could be, and they could be suspect of causing the problem that we are having with our phone lines. It could very well be that, but I don't know if that is the case or not. But certainly, it's something to be considered. You know, and then, of course, there are going to be a lot of questions asked of that, and the technicians will do that. Talktainment Radio is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility that have hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, religion, and politics. And here's one I'd like to share with you, and I shared it in the first hour, and the program is simply called New Money. It is a show that combines imagination, technology, and marketing. It is designed to showcase and teach people that are using modern technology, modern marketing methods, and other creative, non-traditional ways to make money. Now, the goal of the show is to show everyday people how to use technology to make money in ways rather than being forced to start brick and mortar businesses that require large capital and resources. You do know what brick and mortar is. Hosted by Janae Lady Jane Miller and Edward Casanova Red Andrews. These are two experienced marketeers and networkers. Now, you can tune in and be entertained and educated at the same time, and all this is an exclusive on TalkTainmentRadio.com, radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., who is here today to answer your Gmail, so you can certainly call in, Gmail me in, since our phone lines are down. And Brother Lawson indicated that suspect, and you just never know. But anyway, you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and we'll go from there. And I'm telling you right now, I'm looking at this chart, and it is peaking, Mr. Fuller. Peaking. A lot of people are listening as the listenership keeps going up every time I peek over there. Let's go to the Gmails, and we're going to go to this one. I love this name. Man, I love this name. And I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Yadaya. She says this, Mr. Fuller, I have a question about the so-called successful black man, or just black men in general, marrying white women and then blaming the black woman for why he did it. On social media, black men are going crazy degrading black women and putting these white women on a pedestal. Can you explain to me why so many black men are now leaving the black woman, believing the white woman will treat them better or love him better? Is this just an excuse to get out of his responsibilities by leaving? Is it the easy way out? I've been reading this book called 100 Years of Lynching, and in most of these cases, a white woman was the cause of many of these black men lynched in sick, cannibalistic ways of horror. Why is it so easy for us to forget this history? This is another one of the white supremacists. Is this another one of the white supremacist tactics of survival? I mean, if this continues on a large scale, the original darker man become obsolete? From Yadiah. Mr. Fuller?
The white supremacists, here again, are behind all of this. They decided some time ago that they're going to have a large percentage of black males pairing off with white females. They made that decision in order to do what? Confuse. See, it's all about confusion. You dominate people best when you can confuse them. So they instigated, and they've started making all kinds of TV programs and all type of movies and in the songs and whatnot that will be written and put out there among the non-white people, among the black males and whatnot, all about black females being some type of species to be despised and to be beat up on and whatnot. And this is not new. It goes way, way back. I mean, because the white female has always been shown to be what? The it lady, the number one lady, the number one female of the world. Barbie is the number one female image in the entire world among non-white people. Barbie, the Barbie doll, as they call it. And of course, they have different types of Barbie dolls, but then they got one prototype that kind of, you might say, quote, unquote, outshines all the rest.
She set the pace, huh?
Yes, she sets the pace. She's the acme. See, and everybody knows what that is. Which one of the Barbies out of all the Barbies out here is the Barbie? I mean, the prototype, the number one. You know, is it the one with the dark skin and the dark eyes and the kinky hair? I don't think so. But you be the judge. You take a look at how that works. Mm-hmm. And after all, the movie Snow White is still around. Just look at the title of the movie, Snow White. There's an old joke about the black person standing in front of the mirror, and it says, "Mirror, mirror, on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And the mirror speaks back and says, "Snow White, you black SOB, and don't you ever forget it."
Wow. That brought a roar from the studio. Woo! Woo, okay.
There's a lot of sayings like that that goes way back. So, yes, in answer to the question, yes, this goes with the territory.
Okay.
Black males and black females are supposed to be at each other's throats, according to the white supremacists in 2016.
Yes.
All right. Now, they didn't put so much pressure on black people back in the old days when everybody was on the plantation. I mean, because it suited what they wanted. They wanted the black male. You had songs like, I got plenty of nothing. Nothing's plenty for me.
Whoa.
I got my gal. I got my song. Got nothing the whole day long.
Woo.
All right, but now that worked, okay? That did work for the white supremacists at that time. Why? Because you were restricted to the plantation.
Yes.
So a song like that would go over. In other words, my gal Polly Ann, I mean, you know, I'm a steel driving man. And as soon as I get off from work, I'm going and look for Polly Ann. Now, the white supremacists approved of that.
Yes.
But now that black people start talking about we want not just the plantation situation, we want economic power. We want to be on an equal footing with the white people of the world, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then the white supremacists took a look at that and said, oh, no, 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 no. Now, how am I going to handle this in the eighth area of activity when it comes to sex? Oh, what I will do now is I will exalt. I've been restricting these black males from being with white women for years. I've been lynching them. You better not even so much as even think about looking at a white woman in any kind of way that you would claim her as being yours. And I will string you up on a tree.
Yes, sir.
I will burn you, you know, and drag you through the streets behind a truck.
Especially,
and they did that.
And still do.
Yes, but after the 1960s, they say, yes, but here's what. We'll control it, but we're going to release a percentage of the white women and send them deliberately after these black males, particularly the ones who think that they are on the road to success.
Okay.
I mean, and meet them out on that road to, quote, so-called success.
Well, you know, Mr.
And then grab them and take them into the bedroom, and siphon them off from the black female and have them have contempt for the black female. And then that will breed in the black female contempt for the black male, and then she will go chasing after white men.
I see.
All right?
Bringing about confusion.
Then we got confusion here.
Yeah.
And we got it on a mass scale.
Right.
But we will control it.
Okay.
We will only allow so much of this.
Well,
all right?
You know, one of the presidential candidates made this statement, and I didn't pay any attention to it, but maybe he was right when he said the game is rigged. According to the information and the science you just dropped on us, it seemed like a rigged game, and it is a rigged game. Wow.
Well, the system of white supremacy is all rigged.
Yes.
Yes, the whole system.
That's what I'm getting at, exactly.
Yes, when you say the system, you're talking about the system of white supremacy. Within that context, everything is rigged. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Everything is rigged.
The man
right
is
down
rigged.
to the finest detail.
Yeah.
They are great people for details. And they don't skip over anything. Anytime they make a mistake, they correct it immediately. And then they examine everything about that mistake to see to it that they don't make it again.
Here is a question that came up, and it is in your book on page 85 of the revised expanded edition. I'm trying to prevent myself from calling it new. That is the revised expanded edition of the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, which you can get for purchase on by going to producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com. By the way, while you're there, you can get the word guide, the compensatory word guide, which is also available for sale. On page 85, the question is, in a geographical area that is greatly populated, now mind you, we're speaking in economic terms here, economically populated, where should non-white people who have very little seek to reside? Where should they seek to reside, Mr. Fuller?
In a what now?
It says in a geographical area that is greatly populated. Let's say New York City. Where should non-white people who have very little seek to reside?
They should seek to reside in a place where they can get more than what they have, and which means they might have to deliberately relocate, even though they are being forced to, into dislocation. The only reason you move from one place to another is to better your condition. But the white supremacists, they determine what your condition will be.
Yes, I like that because you said within the system of white supremacy, white people are taught that they can go any place in the universe that they choose to go. They are taught to go with great confidence and often with great arrogance. Therefore, it is correct for non-white people to speak and act to guarantee that there is no such place that can be correctly defined as a, quote, white area or a black area of residence. Would that mean like a ghetto or what is commonly called a ghetto or a gated community? Okay.
Every non-white person should try to better his or her condition by going wherever the condition is better. In other words, this thing of having an assigned place for non-white people has got to stop. The white supremacists want to keep the entire world of non-white people ghettoized, Sowetanized. You mean everything is everything is the black area. The black area. It's not supposed to be any such thing as a black area. Black people should be universal people. We're in the universe. And I cover this in the textbook. That's what we should be aiming for, not having an assigned area for black people. The white supremacists invented that. They go where they please. Non-white people go where they are sent in the system of white supremacy. That's two different things. That's not equal. If the white supremacists can go where they please, if white people in general who are not white supremacists can go where they please, why can't the non-white people do the same thing? Go where they please. Just get up and go. I mean, without any restrictions. The white supremacists don't have any restrictions. They just walk right in on anybody's camp, on anybody's so-called country. There's no such thing as borders for white supremacists. In fact, they make the borders for everybody who is considered people of color. They say where your border is. They say what part of the ocean you can go in. And not only that, what part of the sky you can go in. You're invading my airspace, they say. But I can come on your airspace anytime I get ready. That's white supremacy at work. We have to resist that. We have to say, no, I don't have an assigned part of a city or a town or a world. I should be able to go any place just like you do. If you go there, I should be able to go there.
I should be able to go
there. At any time, just on my own will alone. Mm-hmm. In fact, you should assist me in going there if I choose to go.
All right.
You don't have restrictions on yourself. Don't put any on me.
I hear you. TalkTameItRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can check us out on WCRS FM 98.3 Wednesday and Sunday evenings. Blogs and podcasts are available. Download the TalkTameItRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to talk about gaslighting. That's right, gaslighting. That and more of your Gmails coming up next on TalkTameItRadio.com. To TalkTameItRadio.com, we go where you go, and you can download the TalkTameIt Radio gmail.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, and I am the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. You will not be able to call in today, but you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. And before I go to Mr. Stallings, I want to read this Gmail. It comes from Marcus. And Marcus, I'm going to read this over the air. And I'm going to read it exactly the way that you wrote it, and I'm going to respond to it. It says, Mr. Bobby, with all due respect, sometimes I think you talk too much or you say too much when it is unnecessary, and I think what it does interrupts Mr. Neely Fuller. I understand that you want to agree or disagree or ask a question, but I think if you just let him talk, your question will be answered without you ever asking. Just listen, my brother, because that's what I'm trying to do. With love and respect, thank you for all that you do. Well, thank you, Marcus. I appreciate that. And one thing that I've learned from Mr. Fuller is that if you're going to be in a compensatory mode, you have to accept some things that people say, whether you like them or not. Hope I'm not talking too much, Marcus. But it is necessary that I do what I have to do, such as commercials. It is sometimes necessary, and I don't want to, but I have to interrupt Mr. Fuller, especially when I'm getting the signals. Now, those that have been in the studio see that. You and maybe others don't. My intention is not to interrupt Mr. Fuller, but I'm mandated to do certain things, so I have to do that, even to ask the question. So that's just the way that it is. But I do thank you for pointing that out, and I will try to work on maybe listening more, perhaps. Anyway, thank you again, Marcus, for writing in. Okay, now let's go to this. Gaslighting. This comes from Mr. Stallings, Mr. Fuller, and he says this. My question for Mr. Fuller pertains to the white supremacist use of the manipulation tactic of gaslighting. Gaslighting is when you bring to another's attention that their behavior is in some way harmful to you and the person at fault instead of acknowledging it. Acknowledging their behavior in some way is harmful to you and that the person is at fault instead of acknowledging it shifts the blame back over to you. Usually they use a phrase like, you're just being too sensitive, or it's just your imagination. This then causes their victim to doubt themselves and in some cases feel like they are going crazy while they continue to be victimized. It is my observation, Mr. Fuller, that the most effective white supremacists are those who use the tactic of gaslighting, and that these white supremacists tend to have positions of authority in large organizations where they are revered and no one suspects that they are doing anything wrong. Mr. Fuller, how can a victim of racism, white supremacy, effectively use the code to defeat the manipulation tactic of gaslighting?
With the term, this is something I have to get familiar with. I got to catch up on that one.
Okay.
I don't know how that works or anything in the details about it, but I do know this. All problems can be solved by what?
Questions and answers.
Questions and answers. So you simply ask enough questions about what people are doing. It usually has something to do with something that people are doing or saying or doing. Everything is about saying and doing. So evidently, whether it's white people, non-white people, just examine what's being said and or done and ask questions about what is being said or done. And then ask enough questions. That's the whole thing. And enough questions means that you have to have answers to every question. Every possible question that can be asked about what is being said or done.
Yes.
And that would be the procedure. That's the way, that's the compensatory way. Questions and answers.
Yes.
Questions and answers. So you simply look at what the person said and you say, now, is this the correct thing to say? Because everything is correct or incorrect.
Okay.
Everything is constructive or non-constructive. Remember these words. These words are very important. So you ask, sir, ma'am, is this constructive? And if it is constructive, why is it constructive? How is it constructive? Constructive to whom? Is it non-constructive? And if it's non-constructive, how is it non-constructive?
Okay.
And just go on and on and on until all what? Until all questions are answered. And you do that consistently. I mean, simply go into the question mode.
Okay.
Don't make any accusations. Just simply say, sir, is this something that should be done to everybody all the time? Because you're thinking about equality now. Because that's, you got to have equality, what they call, quote, unquote, in order to have a thing called justice. So you say, this thing that's being said, or the way it's being said, does this apply to everyone? And if it doesn't, why? And if it does, why? Should it apply to anybody? And on. You might have 3, 4, 5 dozen questions.
Yes.
About just one thing that is happening.
Okay.
So you try to think up as many questions as you possibly can until what? Until all possible questions about that particular thing can be answered.
Okay. Now, he gave an example, since you asked the question, Mr. Fuller. He gave an example of what gaslighting is. Now, I hope I'm not talking too much, with all due respect. He says, here's an example of gaslighting from an article online in case you needed a clearer explanation. Here's the case. You tell your boss, for example, you are unhappy with the assignments you've been getting. You feel you are being wrongly passed over for the best assignments. You ask him why this is happening. Instead of addressing the issue, he tells you that you are way too sensitive and way too stressed. Well, maybe you are sensitive and stressed, but that doesn't answer the question of why you are being passed over for the better assignments. But rather than leave it at that or redirect the conversation, you start defending yourself, telling your boss that you are not that sensitive or stressed, or that the stress doesn't interfere with your daily work. But during this stage, you are driven crazy by the conversation, going over and over like an endless tape in your mind. He gave that as an example of gaslighting. What is your comment on that? Since he gave that example.
The comment is you get to the specifics of what is being done. Everything is about saying and doing. So if it's something that's being done, you ask questions about the thing that's being done. And the question that you ask is this in conformity with due process? That's that Fifth Amendment. You go straight to that. Where you are, the Fifth Amendment will apply. Some areas of the world it wouldn't, with the Northwestern Hemisphere. And even in other areas of the world, it means the same thing. Mm-hmm. Did you go about doing whatever you did the way that you would go about doing it with everybody? I mean, and that kicks in. The Fifth and the 14th Amendment are both about due process, meaning going about doing something correctly, and equality. It's everybody. Do you do this with everybody? Does this apply to yourself, sir? Mm-hmm. I mean, this thing that's being done. I mean, because equality means just that, equality. Does it apply to everybody? And if it doesn't, why?
Yes.
And if it does, why not? Or whatever. You get all of the questions answered about what is being done, D-O-N-E. See, I mean, not so much about how anybody feels. They're talking about you being sensitive and all like that. And you can say, ask questions about that. What do you mean by being sensitive? See, you can start with a question like that. You always start with what they are saying, what the person is saying. The person is using words. So you ask questions about every word that they're using. Sir, what do you mean by sensitive? Too sensitive. That's the term that you use. What do you mean by too sensitive?
Right.
What is sensitive? And what is too sensitive? And what is the difference between being sensitive and too sensitive? Okay? And that's just leads you right back to the discussion about what is done. Always keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. What is being done? Is this something that should be done or shouldn't be done? And if it should be done, why? And if it shouldn't be done, why not? Okay? And if it should be done, does it apply to everybody all the time? And if it does, how is it being done? I mean, is it being done? Should it apply to everybody all the time? And if it shouldn't, why? And this question after question after question.
Yes.
And at some point, you will be told probably that you're asking too many questions. Now you have what? Another question.
Now you have another question.
How many questions are too many?
TalkTameRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can download the TalkTameRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We are in our third installment talking about the first area of people activity, economics, and Mr. Fuller has been explaining that. But we also can go off topic by taking your Gmails. We can't take your calls today because of a technical issue. And Brother Lawson, you may be on to something. We don't know what's going on with that. Brother Lawson indicated that it could be the usual suspects, and it could very well be. In that case, we have to go. Radio is a situation where you got to go, man. You can't really have dead space. So we have to do what we got to do. Sometimes it's called ad lib. But in this particular case, we're going to read the Gmails. So maybe I am speaking too much, but that's just the way that it is. Anyway, with all due respect to the listeners. And looking at the board over here, you're listening, and we thank you for that. I mean, it's really going up, Mr. Fuller. I'm looking at it. Okay. This comes from Mr. Burton. And I guess it's a question comment, but I'll read it as it is. He said, my comment this morning is that I think I've figured out why there seems to be a bit of communication gap between Mr. Fuller and some of the callers. I think that a lot of the callers want to hear Mr. Fuller say, great comment. I agree. Amen. Right on, brother. After they make a comment, or even say, thank you for the call. But that's not how the code works. The code works in absolutes and in true or falses, yes and no's, and right and wrong, just like math and science. I think it comes as a surprise to a lot of callers because this is how a lot of us African Americans are used to communicating with each other, even when we are doing business. So my hope, Mr. Fuller, is that more of the callers understand this and begin using it themselves, even when dealing with each other, and most especially when dealing with each other, because as you say, Mr. Fuller, the object is to avoid the two C's, confusion and conflict with each other. And by speaking plain and getting to the point and being brief, I think we can accomplish that. I've already started doing that myself. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, Mr. Bobby. Thank you for the great work that you do. Mr. Fuller, will you comment on that?
Well, that comes under VGQ, and that is the correct procedure. The compensatory code system concept is not about Neely Fuller. It's about the logic that came with the universe. And if Neely Fuller is not in tune with the logic that came with the universe, meaning 1 and 1 is 2, I mean, cause and effect, correct and incorrect, these are absolutes. And if Neely Fuller is not on that page, he is not doing what he should be doing. Everything in the universe should be in tune with logic, meaning cause and effect, and with the purpose of separating that which is constructive from that which is non-constructive.
Yes, sir.
The objective is to always do and say the most constructive thing that can be done and said, and eliminate everything that is non-constructive. And that should be the goal of everybody on the planet, to see to it that nothing that is non-constructive is a part of anybody's existence. Everything has a constructive effect. Okay. And therefore, like they said in the movie Godfather, it's not personal, it's business.
It's business, yes, sir.
And so the system of white supremacy is proven to be non-constructive. Why? Because it destroys people. It destroys people. It builds up things. It's very efficient when it comes to that. And it gets a lot of things done. But it leaves too many people who are wounded, who are torn up, who are thrown away in the process. And that is what the fault is with the system of white supremacy. Hypothetically, a system of justice would be a much better system. In fact, it would be the system that should have been in the first place. And what is justice? I had to give a compensatory definition for it. It's guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. That's part one.
Yes.
And part two, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And getting back to that job situation like the person was talking about a while ago, that's the one thing that you can mention in any job situation. You must at all times guarantee that no person is mistreated. There shouldn't be any time that a person is mistreated.
Exactly.
In any situation, job or otherwise. And number two, guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That's the definition of justice. And justice should prevail in all circumstances, not in some, in all. In every area of activity, every minute of every day, everywhere on this planet that we call Earth.
All righty. Mr. Fuller, in the remaining moments that we have on this program for today, being the 2nd of November, if you're not listening to the podcast yet, you gave on page 96 through page 99 a summary of remarks about economics. Do you have your copy there? And those of you who have your copy in the revised expanded edition can see where I am at. You gave several different summary remarks. I don't know if you have yours in your present, Mr. Fuller, but if you do, would you select one and elaborate on that? There are many on here. I haven't counted, but there are many remarks that you have about that. Could you select one, or maybe I could read one, whichever you prefer?
Well, I'm looking at one on page 97 here, now that you mentioned it, right at the bottom of page 97.
Yes.
Simplify and appreciate. Teach yourself to simplify and to appreciate all the ways that you use your time and energy. Without spending money, teach yourself to appreciate all of the pleasant and constructive sights, sounds, and feelings that you are exposed to in many everyday ordinary situations. Include as major profit. See, when we talk about economics, we're talking about profits.
Yes.
All right, sometimes getting something that you don't have that you can probably use or you need for constructive activity.
Yes.
Include as major profit the many things that you see, hear, and feel that you often do not recognize as being a worthy experience. Because profits, you can include in your what you call profit column on the economics, your experiences, worthy of being enjoyed for the moment, as well as being stored and revisited in memory over and over again. Seek to know and understand that many of the sights and sounds and spiritual moments, quote unquote, in your surroundings are well worth remembering as pleasurable experiences, sometimes far into the future. Teach yourself to value these things. And it started off on that paragraph saying, simplify and appreciate.
Right.
Try to keep everything simple. Look at things for what they really are worth, rather than what somebody says that they are worth. And particularly in all these seasonal times when people try to get you to go out and spend money for things that you really didn't really want.
Yes.
And definitely didn't need. But they try to get you to do it because they say, well, this is the holiday season.
Right.
So therefore, go and buy this and buy that.
And
no, resist that.
And you did address the holiday in the economic section.
Oh, yes. And every day is a holiday. That's another thing. Every day is a holy day. Holiday comes from the word holy. Holy means whole. You know, every day is a whole day. So every day is a holiday.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, so therefore, what do you do on a whole day, a holiday? You do the most constructive thing that you possibly can do on that day.
Mm-hmm.
That day is not going to come back. Once it's gone, it's gone. You're not going to get that day again. I mean, you keep moving. That's why I always tell people, someone call me, and when they do, I always remind them that, you know, they say that, well, I understand you had a birthday recently. I said, well, no, I didn't have a birthday recently. I had a birthday a long time ago, and that was the day that I was born. Now, since then, I have what you call breath days. You have one birthday, and you start breathing, and then all the days from that point on, you continue to breathe. Those are breath days. And then, at some point, you will have a what? Death day. So you have breath days and a death day. You don't have a birthday because somebody put up something called a calendar, and that so-called birthday comes around according to that calendar. No, you were just born once.
As a matter of fact, you said on page 99 under the things that in summary, you said expect that death can and will come to you and to others at any time, and sometimes under circumstances not thought about seriously. Prepare your thinking so that you will not be surprised about the manner, place, and or time associated with death of any person, creature, or thing. Also, expect death-making disease, germs to exist as long as everything is not known and understood.
Correct.
Wow. That is really something.
That way you get no surprises.
No
See,
surprises.
You don't get any unpleasant surprises. You minimize unpleasant surprises.
Okay.
And in order to do that, you have to be realistic.
Let's see. For your information, mine and for the listeners, Mr. Fuller, let's see. Since this is November the 2nd, we will also be on November the 9th and November the 16th. So, but after that, we will return to the air on November the 30th. So we will not have a show. We're going to have the, I guess it's called Thanksgiving situation. On the 23rd, there will not be a live show, but I do think we will be on podcast. You can hear a podcast. I got the nod just now. You can hear us on podcast on the 23rd, so don't call on. And the reason why I say that, because some people will call in, maybe some won't get the notice, but we will be off for that. So we're on today, the 2nd. We will be on next week, the 9th and the 16th. And also, but we will not be on November 23rd. There will be no show then, no live show. But then we will return on September the 30th. So you got that information in. Well, Mr. Fuller, in our remaining moment that we have in the show, and I think it was a very good show, and I can tell by the viewers, or rather the people who are listening, and they are listening, and it's very good. And they call in to listen to you. What words of wisdom or you would like to say as we come to the conclusion of today's program?
I would just like to say that appreciate what you have, particularly with these so-called holidays coming in the Northwestern Hemisphere and anywhere else in the world where you have what they call the holidays. Appreciate the things that you have, be it ever so humble and whatnot, and try to use them for the most constructive purposes that you can. And don't put yourself out in expenditures buying things that you don't need. Make sure that anything that you buy is something that you need for a constructive purpose. I mean, stop throwing away the things that you have. I mean, just because somebody advertising something. I mean, kind of cut back on that because we are in very, 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 very uncertain times.
Yes.
And like I started off this program saying that if you have a place to stay, residence and whatnot, don't try to fill up space, particularly people in the Northwestern Hemisphere. They have a tendency to do that.
All righty, gotta go. Talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. We will try to do better next week, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on Talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power, the world's greatest radio. Talktainmentradio.com.